And TGIF, everyone. Welcome into the First Call podcast presented by ExpressBet and FirstBet. Alongside Scott Shapiro, I'm Jeremy Plonk. We're going to talk some horse racing handicapping this weekend as we do each and every week. We've got 8 stakes races for you. We've got one guy to get all the winners. Scott, good luck to you this weekend as we roll into closing weekend at Del Mar and a lucrative Saturday coming up and Sunday at Kentucky Downs.
Yeah, I mean, they really fire out the purses here. You look at this day, and it's competitive racing. Don't get me wrong. You could find value in just about every race, but it's amazing when you kind of comp the purses to what we're used to for $1 million. It just doesn't correlate. But that doesn't take away from the quality wagering that there is to be had on this card, with no doubt. And Del Mar closing shop this weekend. So kind of a turning of the page as we head into the fall after this Saturday.
All right, let's get after it. We've got some good racing to attack. For those of you watching on our video podcast channels at YouTube or on X, be sure to like this, share it, comment in the comment section. Help us grow the audience for the First Call podcast. For those of you on our traditional audio channels with us all these years, here are the races Scott and I will handicap over the next 30 minutes or so. We're going to start things off at Gulfstream Park, opening leg of the Florida Sire Stakes Series. The Dr. Feger, our featured race from Gulfstream. To Del Mar we go for closing Saturday. Sunday will be the final day of racing for the summer meet at Del Mar. Del Mar Debutante will be our first stakes race that we handicap. Then we'll go to the Del Mar Juvenile Fillies Turf, and we'll stay on the turf for the John C. Maybes. So the fillies in the spotlight Saturday and mares at Del Mar. To Kentucky Downs, we go on Saturday, a ton of stakes races up and down the lineup. We will look at 3 of them. The Millions will be the first of those. That coming up in race 7. We'll go to the 10th for the Franklin Simpson Stakes, and then we'll wrap things up with the Kentucky Turf Cup, that being race number 11. And then we'll go to Colonial Downs, where it used to be Virginia Derby Day, but they moved the Virginia Derby to dirt into the spring, and now it's the Old Dominion Derby that we're going to run in the state of Virginia. So we will take a look at the Old Dominion Derby, first running of that under that particular name. Colonial Downs will be our final destination for the weekend. Let's take a look at some of the promos and tournaments we've got this weekend coming up at ExpressBet. You can play in the tournament scene, the $2,500 Kentucky Downs Challenge this weekend. Live money, big bankroll tournament there. Earn seats into the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, the National Horse Players Championship, a lot of the big tournaments and cash prizes as well, obviously, in that one. And if you're playing this weekend at Gulfstream Park, be sure to play with FirstBet and ExpressBet on Saturday. You can get up to $10 money back on your win bets in the 2 stakes races of the Florida Sire Stakes Series. So both the Phillies division and the Colts division that will handicap on this show, up to a $10 money back special if your win bet finishes second or third. But we've got Scott with us, so you won't need the insurance running second or third. He's going to put you in the winner's circle for the Dr. Feger. It's the first stakes race that will handicap the Dr. Feger division of the Florida Sire Stakes. 3 races in the Florida Sire Stakes series for the state breds. Obviously, they'll start off here at 6 furlongs about a month or so from now. They'll extend to 7. And then by the beginning of the championship meet at Gulfstream Park, they'll run the final leg for the 2-year-olds in that series around 2 turns. Last year, Rated by Merit just buzz through this series and looked absolutely fabulous. We'll see if we get that kind of runner. And of course, the Dr. Feger Stakes, this division named, we'd be remiss if we didn't say, from 1966 to 1968, there was no faster thoroughbred in the game. Dr. Feger won 18 of 22 races. He never raced in the state of Florida, Scott. He was a Florida bred. He would go stand stud, Tartan Farms, and stand stud in Florida as well. Of course, he's been such a big part of the breeding program in the state of Florida. 5-time track record setter and set the world record at a mile in his third to last start. So the Dr. Feger Stakes, we're not going to have one like him again, probably out of the state of Florida, but we'll see what we can do at the beginning of this series. Let's talk about the stakes here, the Dr. Feger.
Yeah, interesting. I can't remember a Florida bred even remotely at that level. No disrespect to the Sunshine State, but Squire, well, I should say Patrick Biancone, the trainer, has been having a very kind run, though, in the state of Florida. He's 28% on the year. Actually, I think somewhere close to 30%. At least when I looked at it a couple of days ago. And he's got Squire, who was bet down to 5-2 second choice in his debut and won from off the pace that day, a little bit off the pace by a head. Comes back in the Royal Palm Juvenile. Luis Saez comes in to ride, and this horse goes off at 4-5. Did a lot of the dirty work, putting away the other speed, but just did not have enough to hold off the eventual winner. I think he's a bit of standout here against other Florida breds. He's proven on the dirt. I think it's going to be Patrick Plonk and Squire in this year's Dr. Fager.
One big difference, he's been gelded since that last start. Let's go back to that race, the Royal Palm Juvenile back in May. Here is Squire running the second to Sandal Song.
Luis Saez and Squire make a bid to take the lead. Beers on me. Fights right back second, chasing my dream third. Sandal Song looking for room. Panici trying to feed him some racetrack. He's got some run here. Into the clear comes Sandal Song to lay down the challenge to the in-battle duo through a 21-4 opening quarter. Off the turn in the stretch drive. Sandal Song with a big sweeping move now, and he shoves ahead on top. Squire tries to battle back. He's now second. Third is Beers on me, but Sandal Song will make his first start an impressive one with a Royal Palm Juvenile victory. Sandal Song does it by a length and a half. Squire second, nicely clear of a battling Arkadelphia.
I'm going to take a little shot in here, Scott. I'm going to give a look to all to win in here for Rowan Crichton. This is a horse who debuted against Florida breds, but in that debut win was bet 6-5, was well meant on August 2nd. And what I like about this one, this horse has had 3 workouts since that win a month ago. Really back on the tab 14 days later, like you'd like to see. The 16th, the 23rd, the 30th, working right on cue. They got back to some gate works to kind of sharpen them a little bit more. I'm going to give all to win a shot in here under Amicio Jaramillo, going to show some speed as he always does. Jaramillo in the saddle. I give all to win a chance in here. One little side note, we always talk about these 2-year-olds is could they potentially be Kentucky Derby winners? And we joke a lot about names of horses and such, like this horse just isn't named to be a Kentucky Derby winner. 4th and Central on the outside. That's the address of Churchill Downs at the corner of 4th and Central. He's named to win the Kentucky Derby. I don't know if he will, but we'll find out if he can win the Dr. Fager. He's at least got the right address if you want to look up a Derby winner.
No doubt about it. I think he's bred more to win the I don't even know the Pate Mile can get it for him the way he's bred. He's bred like a sprinter, but well named to win the Run for the Roses, no doubt, in 2026.
He might be well named to win an A other than allowance, in his 5-year-old season at Churchill. But nonetheless, the address would still fit for him. Let's go to Del Mar now on Saturday. Big day of racing there where the turf and surf meet. We've got 3 stakes races that we're going to handicap, starting with the Del Mar Debutante. We will look at races 6, 7, and 9 in your past performances if you're following and handicapping along here with us. Del Mar Debutante, race number 6. Bob Baffert's won this race a mere 11 times. Last year, he did it with Tenma. Of course, you've got to consider Baffert in any of these 2-year-old stakes. In fact, in the Del Mar the Del Mar Futurity on Sunday, we won't handicap that race, but Baffert's got, I think, 4 of the 6 entrants in that race. No place, no show wagering. It's basically Baffert against Doug O'Neill in that one. Bob Baffert's got a hand to play here, obviously, in the Del Mar Debutante. He's got the 1 Explorer. He's got the 2 in here, Hamika. Baffert's also got the 5 Battle of Rouge. So 3 Bafferts in here. Let's see what you take. Is it Baffert? One of the 3 you got to split, or you're going to try to break up the party?
I am going to try to break up the party, but it's a tall task, as you mentioned, the 11th with Tenma last year. The interesting thing is I expect Hamika to take a ton of support. She's been dominant in her 2 starts. But the one thing I would note, Bob's won this race more often than he's not of late. Hasn't won both the Sorrento, which Hamika did end this race since 2012, though, with executive privilege. So not necessarily something he does often. Maybe you could take that for this filly is very sharp because he doesn't run him back always. Or you could take it as he's trying to get the most out of this filly. He knows that it's maturing earlier than her crop. I would prefer Explorer, but I just think – the way to go is to take a small shot, against the Bafferts in here. And I found an angle that's interesting. Bourbon and Ginger. You don't see Richard Mandela win all that often at Del Mar. In fact, with first-time starters, you haven't seen him win a lot this summer. This filly did both. $325,000 daughter of both Oro. And what I found interesting is over the last 3 years, Mandela comes into this 4 for 21 with 2-year-old first-time starters in dirt sprints at Del Mar. Two of them are Tamara and Kopi, and arguably the two best young horses he's had. So they win early. There's a good chance they're amongst his best. I don't know if this filly is at that level, but if I'm taking a shot against the Baffert to get an outside draw, I think you should get a pretty good price because the speed figure didn't come back very quick.
Yeah, field of 7 to be on the outside, park there with the long run down the backstretch at 7/8 of a mile. Good position to be in. We'll see if Bourbon and Ginger can follow up on that win from August 2nd.
Bourbon and Ginger tracks in second. Mistrial has made her way up into third now. And then comes Grandma Mary after a 21.97 opening quarter mile. Grandma Mary is back into third. Mistrial's under a ride. She's fourth, needs to do a lot better, dropping back now. Then Jasmine, who's about to take fourth and come 3 wide. In the meanwhile, Bourbon and Ginger has moved up alongside of Umbrale and has taken the lead. Bourbon and Ginger to the front. Opening up from Umbrale as Grandma Mary tries to close the gap on the outside. Bourbon and Ginger, and Grandma Mary comes down to these two. Bourbon and Ginger, Grandma Mary coming but running out of time. Here's the wire. Bourbon and Ginger holds on.
Scott's top pick in there to pull the upset. Bourbon and Ginger. Explorer looks like the best of the Bafferts in here to me. Back on 8 days after the debut win from August 17th to 25th, right back on the workout tab in 8 days. That shows trainer intent. They wanted to get this horse right back to the Del Mar debutante on basically 20 days rest. And they got 2 workouts in between, despite running 20 days in between races with Explorer. There's a lot of intent there with Hernandez jumping off the Sorrento winner to take the mount for Baffert on Explorer. So Explorer to the inside, Bourbon and Ginger to the outside. That's probably how we decide the Del Mar debutante race number 6. If there's not a good exacta to play in there for you, you're looking for a little more value, maybe a parlay, if you will, into a daily double, races 6 and 7, both stakes races. And in the 7th race, you've got a huge field for the Del Mar Juvenile Fillies Turf. Field of 13, all will go. There's no also eligibles in this field of 13. So using the full turf course here, closing weekend at Del Mar, a good opportunity if you're looking at the multi-race wagers. Even if you have a horse who's really short in race number 6, if you like Explorer, look to the doubles here with 13 options in race number 7. A good chance for the daily doubles, the pick 3s, the pick 4s to kind of expand a little bit here. Who do you like in this Del Mar Juvenile Fillies Turf, Scott? 13 to go, and we should get some fair prices all around.
Yeah, this is always a good race, and I know it's not graded. We'll talk a little bit grades, less than we would like. We could rant for an hour about the graded system, I'm sure, you and I. But this race is for real. I know it doesn't have a grade, but this is kind of a race that sometimes European, barns point to, or horses purchased over there, kind of a stateside start. Just a kind of the first of its kind out west. And I think the race is competitive. I did find a filly, though, that I like quite a bit in here. With one concern. Number 8, Queen Bay, was hammered down the favoritism in late May for Simon Callahan at 2-5, and just won, not only won easily, but won like a filly that wasn't just necessarily a sprinter that was fast that day, but did it with class. She's she commanded $350,000 at the sale, and she's out of Adamo, I remember, as a turf router at Queen Med. Now, it's hard a little bit to know with kind of the breaks they take from turf options in Southern California. If the true plan was to win this race and take off until now, it feels a little iffy. That's the only concern I have. But I think this is a well-meant filly for a barn that, doesn't win a ton of races anymore, but is more than capable, and they get Juan Hernandez out.
Simon Callahan trains Queen Bay. Not a lot of options when you break your maiden in late May on the turf. And if you have a turfer, you're not getting allowance races. So you do got to kind of just, you're a slave to the stakes conditions, in the stakes book at that point. So Queen Bay may have been pointed to this all along. We will find out. But that debut win, like you said, puts her on the fast track.
Quarter of a mile to go. Glassheart, Queen Bay coming to her. Glassheart on the inside, and Queen Bay. They'll come to the 8th pole together, and Queen Bay takes the lead inside the final 1/8 of a mile. Glassheart is now back to second, followed by Baby Need Shoes in third, coming toward the wire, and Queen Bay as advertised. Queen Bay in a good-looking debut, scores by almost 3 lengths.
You'll get a better price than 2 to 5 this time with the 13-horse field, but might still be amongst the favorites, if not the favorite. Morning line 7 to 2 on LaVille Lemaire. The 1 in here probably takes some money, and the 8 Queen Bay at 9 to 2, second choice in the morning line. Let's go to race number 9 on Saturday at Del Mar. It's the John C. Maybe. John C. Maybe, most folks remember as the creator of the Golden Hill Farm, along with his wife, and of course, or Golden Eagle Farm, I should say. Golden Eagle Farm, Best Pal, and some of the big names on the West Coast over the years. John C. Maybe was a grocer, made his money in that business, owned a part of the San Diego Chargers, and one of the original Del Mar Thoroughbred Club board of directors. So the John C. Maybe for the turf mares here. Fillies looking towards the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf. 1 mile and an 1/8 here. You could also be cutting back towards the Breeders' Cup mile if you would so choose. I believe 1 mile and 3/8 the distance for the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf when we run it at Del Mar. So could be a prep here for some of these fillies looking to head towards the Breeders' Cup. 3-year-olds and up in this one. We've got the older runners. Which one did you settle on?
Well, a lot of them are exiting the yellow ribbon, and what was similar about the yellow ribbon, what I expected the John C. Maybe, which is a 16th of a mile further, but a lot of the same runners, is there's not a lot of speed in here. There was a wire-to-wire winner in Heredia in that race. I don't know if there's going to be a wire-to-wire winner in here, but I don't want to be too far out of it. And it looks like a lot of the runners in here have a big chance to be. If you want to get creative, I think Kentucky Gal, 1 of 4 in here for Phil D'Amato, is the one that maybe can be there and can get loose with the blinkers on, and Edwin Maldonado at 1 mile and an 1/8. I don't fully trust. I think number 4, Maduro, is going to be close enough to the early pace. And I just think she's kind of a step above this group. Granted, she has not been able to put a lot of races together, but I take it as a positive that clearly, the return race, the Oceanitis, which is a restricted return rate, a restricted stake to return in, she won that nicely, and had some tactical speed in there off the bench. I think Umberto Rispoli will be able to put her close enough to the pace. And I just think she's probably, potentially peaking, hopefully, for her connections in this spot, whereas I think a lot of these are a cut below her, even on maybe her B-plus effort.
Yeah, this was a really shrewd placement by Peter Urton last time out in that race at Del Mar. You talked about it being a restricted stakes. It's restricted to horses who hadn't won a stakes this year. Well, she hadn't run, so the knock on her isn't to fit the condition. The knock on her was she hadn't run at all. So had she run, she may not have been eligible for that race because she probably had been a stakes winner already on the campaign. So really smart placement to get against the field of either other comebackers or fillies who are a little bit underachievers. Smart placement. That gets her set up perfectly second off the layoff here in the Maybe, which is the real test of the meet for her. So smart placement, and we'll see if she can wheel right back to victory.
Maxima's in behind horses, saving every inch of ground, needs a place to run here as they come to the top of the stretch. Where's she going to go? Trying to dive to the rail is Queen Maxima. She's got some running room, but she's got to get going. In the meanwhile, Maduro has taken the lead on the outside. Maduro from Grand Slam Smile. Lunar Impact, Queen Maxima, not today. It's Maduro's day. Maduro wins the Oceanitas. Grand Slam Smile was second, and then a photo for show.
Oceanitas Victor there for Maduro. She'll try to wheel right back. Give me another is 3-1 second choice in the morning line. Grand Motion is pretty sporting in bringing horses to Del Mar, especially on the grass. I mean, almost exclusively on the grass. But when you talk about East Coast conditioners willing to come west, the late Christophe Clement was certainly willing to do that during Del Mar quite a bit. And Grand Motion has been very supportive and successful doing that over the years. Give me another has been facing some really good ones. When you talk about She Feels Pretty up at Woodbine, ready for Sherrill last time, she's taking on some really good competition. Sometimes this filly and mare division and the turf division on the West Coast is just kind of the same hats being traded back and forth, and they don't get a lot of shippers in. Give me another that's going to stack up really well in class here, Scott.
I agree with that. Hasn't won, though, since getting to the States. Yep. And has definitely held her own, had that nose for the wire clearly, or maybe it didn't because she was so much better than her competition. So that's the one concern I have, clearly going to be the one that takes the other money, the rest of, the public's money other than my choice and the 5-2 favorite. So makes a lot of sense to me.
That is the Del Mar scene for Saturday, the John C. Maybe, the 9th race. Let's go now to Kentucky Downs on Saturday, where there are a ton of stakes races, I believe 6 in all up and down the lineup. All 6 stakes races were $2 million or more. I mean, Dr. Evil would need both pinkies to announce the purse money in those races. $2 million on those Kentucky Downs. They're giving away silly money. I mean, that's the bottom line. Now, the purses are what they are. They create large field sizes, but not necessarily the absolute creme de la creme in these races, but they're competitive and good betting races, and they're getting better in quality for sure over the years. To the 7th, we go to start things off in the Mint Millions. The Mint Millions Stakes is one where we get last year's winner in the Mint Millions is back in Goliad. Goliad makes the 3rd appearance at Kentucky Downs lifetime. 2 for 2 over the course. Richard Mandela, you mentioned, could get a second winner of the meet at Del Mar. He's only got the 1 win on the West Coast this year, but he brings Goliad off a June layoff here from the Daytona at Santa Anita. Goliad is inside speed. I'm not so sure the inside's necessarily, particularly advantageous at Kentucky Downs with the configuration and the way the track plays out, but it's not certainly a disadvantage. But Goliad's going to be inside speed in here. We know that about him. That's all he knows is just to go. Do you like Goliad to repeat, or are you going somewhere else?
I don't. I think Epic Ride's going to be a thorn in his side. He's got only one way to go as well. And I'm not necessarily sure if Goliad is the same animal as he was last year. That remains to be seen. That's kind of a guess. I like Brilliant Birdie in here, who has not had an honest pace to run at. And we just discussed the fact that there should be, at the very least, an honest pace. And Brilliant Birdie was a horse that I thought would be Cherie's kind of chance to have more than looks, who was the Breeders' Cup Mile winner last year, that kind of level. And he's been good, but I don't think we really got to see the best of him because he just hasn't had any honest paces to run at. And he likes to sit off and finish, but you wouldn't really know it. He's 1 for 1 over this course, too, which I love. He won the Gun Runner, which is on this card as well. 7 for 11 in the career. He's found ways to win without getting the setup. Now he gets one. I think we're going to see the best of Brilliant Birdie on Saturday.
Couple interesting takes in this race, too. What do we make of Spirit of St. Louis? When he won the Pegasus World Cup Invitational back in the spring, and then the Turf in the winter, and then the Turf Classic at Churchill and the Derby undercard in the spring, he looked like America's top turf contender. But his last 2 in New York just haven't been good at Saratoga. Off the board at 8-5, 9-5 in the Manhattan. Did not fire at all at 7-1 when let go in the 4-star Dave. That was on the cut back to a mile. He's back at a mile, and again, he just seemed to have lost his way a little bit. Can Spirit of St. Louis get it back?
Well, I mean, the price might be there to consider it, but to me, this looks like a horse that peaked earlier in the year. The goal was, I'm sure a New York bred to win the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational was very much the goal, knowing that he was doing well. You see, he runs fine in the Muniz. That was a weird race. And then the Turf Classic, I don't want to knock the effort, but he was on the right part of the turf course on the day where the inside was not the place to be, finishing well. And this was not a strong Turf Classic, I don't think. No knocks to Mercanti and the others, but there's just kind of a big tier of those horses. I don't know if the grade 1s are that much different than the grade 3s per se. So I think Spirit of St. Louis had his time. I think they're just, hoping for the best here. And Manny Franco has not been riding at his best either right now, which doesn't help his chances.
So he was more Mr. First and Second Quarter, we'll say, with Spirit of St. Louis. Now, talk about a horse who's Mr. Right Now. Lajinos, he's on the outside of this field. He won the Tapit Stakes here on August 28th at Kentucky Downs. He's going to wheel back on very quick rest here for trainer Steve Asmussen. He was unreal winning that race by more than 5. Looked like a house of fire coming down the lane in the Tapit Stakes. Ran fast fractions, 45 and change to the half, and just drew off and won easily after pressing that pace. I think he's got a real chance to wheel right back. So I dug into the BetMix database, the BetMix Angler, and really kind of tried to rationalize, can a horse come back and win second time at Kentucky Downs on such short rest? Well, last year, 13 horses tried it during the Kentucky Downs meet. 4 of them were successful winners. Then I looked specifically at Steve Asmussen, the trainer. He's tried it 8 times over the years. He's won 4 of those 8, including the last 3 in a row. Over the last 2 seasons at Kentucky Downs, he's tried it 3 times to bring a horse back second time at the meet. All three of them won. I think Lajinos has a big shot of repeating. That last race was really good, and he's my best bet of the weekend here. I think he's going to run a huge race here in the Mint Millions, and hopefully he can make it 2 for 2 at the meet. I don't know. It was a huge buyer figure, 104. That's going to draw a lot of attention. Value for me is somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 2. I hope he doesn't get hammered at the windows.
I've been saying his name wrong for a long time. First and foremost, I've been saying Laganos, but glad you corrected me when you said it before we went on live. I didn't know you were talking about for a second, but he's been at his best at Kentucky Downs. He's a horse that I think when spotted properly has shown that he can win races. And he really hasn't been, chalk or anything quite a lot at all in his career. So he could be sitting on a big one. And those stats matter when it's a trainer like Steve Asmussen who, he knows what to do with his horses, when to give them time, when to push the button on them, So very good points.
And we looked at those 4 horses last meet at Kentucky Downs last season that returned to win. They were all 10, 11, 16, $23. They were all nice prices. So hopefully we can get that similar kind of mid-range price. 5, 6 to 1 would be awesome in here. But I would go down as low as about 7 to 2. Any lower than that, though, in a big field, will get me a little bit more concerned. Let's go to the 10th race on the card Saturday at Kentucky Downs. This is grade 1, 6.5 furlong, 3-year-old sprinters in the Franklin Simpson Stakes. And you say, who was Franklin Simpson? I always like to give the history. It's not a person. It's the town of Franklin, Kentucky, and the county that it's in, Simpson, Kentucky. So the Franklin-Simpson Stakes. Scott, we could talk history on this race. There's not much of it. It's only 8 years old. The last 3 winners of the race were Howard Wolowitz, Private Creed, and One Timer. And for some reason, it was upgraded to a grade 1 by the North American Graded Stakes Committee this year. I'm not sure whose favor that was for. It was either for Franklin or Simpson, but somebody got a nice boost.
Hopefully both cities did, and the actual humans in them did. Then it's a little better. My gut says without really, I think I might know more than I remember at the moment, but I just think that they were going to give them a grade 1. I don't know why they chose this one, but there's not a lot of 3-year-old turf sprints to comp it to maybe. Anyway, with not the point here, we're going to try to pick a winner. And I'm a big fan of the race this year if I hit it, because I think both the favorites are vulnerable in here. I think Spiced Up and Governor Sam, who exited the grade 3 Mahoney last out at Saratoga, are a little bit vulnerable. I'm not so sure Spice Me Up, who I expect to get absolutely hammered for Juddmonte and Mott. Mott's doesn't have much. It's not like he's pointing horses to Kentucky Downs like some of these others. And Governor Sam, I don't know. This horse has run a lot of races already. He is very good, but is he a 6.5 furlong horse? The blinkers coming off tells me George Weaver has questions about that and is trying to relax him earlier, so maybe he has something left late. He's wearing blinkers in every start. I don't love that. I'm going to try Antisocial in here, which is what I am these days. A son of Not This Time, who is cutting back. I think the cutback here with a rider like Joel Rosario could spell the right situation for trainer Jorge Duarte Jr. The mile races should give him the foundation. I think he has enough speed to not be way out of it early. 12 to 1 on Antisocial. Hopefully we get that price.
Let's go back and take a look at his last effort. You mentioned cutting back from a mile. It was in the grade 2 Secretariat. He was in the mix throughout.
Maui Strong, Antisocial, Dream On coming with that big 4-wide move. Cairo Caper is right there and amongst horses. Giocoso going to look for a way through. Simulate is in behind horse with Anagata. They stack right across the track. Dream On toward the center. Simulate trying to run on right down the crown of the track. Giocoso meanwhile comes through down at the fence. Giocoso's narrowly in front. Antisocial right there. Down the far outside goes Simulate. They come to the wire. It's Giocoso took the shortest way home and wins the Secretariat Stakes. Simulate and Antisocial were in a photo there for second. After that was Anagata and Dream On.
So Antisocial ended up third in that race, but beaten just a length and a mile. The cutback in distance. This is interesting because a lot of the turf sprints to this point have been 5.5 for a lot of these horses, as you mentioned. Now you get the milers cutting back from 8 furlongs to 6.5. They're kind of meeting a little bit in the middle. It'll be interesting to see how this one shakes out. How fast they go early obviously determines a bit of the finish. And here at Kentucky Downs, it's not as much of a closer's track as people would think. You're thinking, the uphill run at the end and everybody kind of dies. It's a long stretch, but a lot of these races are put away and the horses, go on and draw off. So I think you want to be, once they get into that long straight, you want to be right up into the mix. I don't think you want to be making a last desperate push in this race going 6.5 at Kentucky Downs. We'll go to the featured race, if you will. Still $2 million, a lot of $2 million races. Grade 2 Kentucky Turf Cup Invitational. This will be at 1.5 miles. So, direct kind of correspondence, if you will, towards the Breeders' Cup turf. We don't have a Breeders' Cup turf type field in here, but we've got a good lineup for you in the Kentucky Turf Cup. Scott, which way are you looking in this 12 furlong affair?
Well, I think it's a good betting race. And it's because for the most part, I think I got these before the morning line. I think Mercante, I expected Mercante, Fort Washington, and Grand Sonata to be the 3 favorites, roughly. And I think the 2 horses in the Arlington Million, Fort Washington and Grand Sonata, are a little bit vulnerable here. I don't think there's going to be a lot of pace. Fort Washington, for one, needs pace. I'm not sure the stretch out. I really like this horse a lot, but I'm not sure the stretch out with this over this configuration, to your point, is about coming from way out of it. I'm not sure this is what this horse wants to do. And Grand Sonata just doesn't like to win races anymore. He had a really good trip up the rail last time and still was beaten by Fort Washington. So I think Mercante's the one to beat, but I think Anglophile is an interesting horse. I'm going to make him my pick, but more of a key in exotics. And I just think this Son of English Channel's races are a little better than they appear. The last race at 1.25 miles, a solid third in the prep for this race. And Declan Cannon, to me, I know he's less of a household name than some of these other jockeys or all of them, but I think he knows this horse and fits him well. He's running one of his 2 starts over this course. He's 8-1 on the line, I see now. I think he might get overlooked a little more than that. So I'm going to build my wagers around Anglophile in here in this Kentucky Turf Cup.
Let's go back to last year's edition where Grand Sonata got the victory. He's lost 8 in a row since then. Third place finisher in there was Tawny Port. I'm going to talk a little bit more about him on the other side.
Is down toward the rail. Still 6 lengths to make up for him. And then comes Highway Robber. Can Get Smokin' take him the distance one more time. 3 furlongs to go. He's still on top as they make their way toward the top of the stretch here in the Kentucky Turf Cup. Now getting on the scene is Integration from the back of the pack, who swings up on the outside, and right up there too in contention is Cathkin Peak, and coming up the rail, Grand Sonata, and now Cathkin Peak and Grand Sonata have gone by. Here come the rest. Tawny Port is putting in a run. Anglophile is there. Integration trying to squeeze on through. Highway Robber from the back of the pack too. They're all coming down to the line, and it's going to be Grand Sonata and Highway Robber. Grand Sonata did it. Highway Robber was second. Then Tawny Port and Integration.
This horse, that's a rail run. He gets a rail run every time. He's just a tough bet to me. Sorry, I know that you were ready to chime in.
No, that's good. Look, Todd Pletcher's going great guns right now, right? He won 12 races at Saratoga closing week last week. He won out west in the Pacific Classic. So everything Pletcher's tightening the girth on, and even when his assistants are tightening it, are running really well right now. So Grand Sonata, you got to respect. I'm taking a shot in here with Tawny Port. I think he's going to be double-digit odds. I know he hasn't won in a while, but he's running back second time at the meet. And again, these horses that run back second time at Kentucky Downs have had good success. And I know he's coming out of the 2 1/16 miles race in that long Gold Cup Invitational. I don't think that's a stamina killer. I think it's a stamina builder. They just canter in that race until the final quarter mile and then try to finish up. And so I think it's kind of a nice prep towards this on the cutback. And he ran second that day, a clear second behind Flat in the Curve, who was much the best. Miguel Clement, like we talked about, Pletcher pulling all the right strings. Miguel Clement hasn't missed a putt on the turf this year since taking over for his father's stable in New York. So I'm giving Tawny Port a shot in here at a price. I like him running back second time at the meet. He runs well over the course. He was third in that when he was second in his other appearance at Kentucky Downs back away. So I'm giving him a shot. And the other thing with Tawny Port is, this always sticks in my mind, They tried to cram him into the Kentucky Derby as a 3-year-old, ran him back on 2 weeks rest in the Lexington, and he ran the best race of his career to that point on 2 weeks rest. He's being crammed back in here. He's kind of done this before. It was when he was with Brad Cox. Now he's with Miguel Clement, but there's a little history of him running back quickly, and I think he might run a good one on Saturday.
The Ohio Derby winner that year as well. He's I remember needing him quite a bit that day. He ran big, and that was the peak to his career until now when he's top pick for $2 million for one Jeremy Plonk. After taking
that's your career highlight, you've got trouble.
I mean, man, he got that was the most underwhelming second in $1 million race you might ever see. And he's fresh though, to your point.
Let's switch gears now. Go from Kentucky Downs. We're going to stay on the grass, though, and go to Colonial Downs. And we've seen a lot of horses from Colonial over to Kentucky Downs. There's some good synergy there. If you're gambling on the Kentucky Downs meet and you're following the Colonial Downs horses, you're doing pretty well for yourself. And that's been the case over the last 5 years. So the Colonial Downs horses are ones I've been following quite a bit at Kentucky Downs, a little handicapping crossover, if you will, there. But to Kentucky Downs, to Colonial Downs, we go next. And we will talk about the Old Dominion Derby, race number 10 on the card. It's grade 3 company at Colonial Downs on Saturday. 9 furlongs to trip in here. Scott, we got another good sized field to work with, a field of 9, not a massive turf field, but a good one in here. Who do you like?
Well, I don't think there's a ton of speed in this race, mile and an eighth on their turf course there. I think you're probably going to see Iron Hand, the Florida bred, go to the lead under Edwin Gonzalez. And then I think, sitting right off of him is hopefully the trip you're going to want. And it comes with a horse that I, have been high on, mostly because I've just been following this trainer, Phil Antonacci. I couldn't tell you a lot about him personally, but I know he wins a lot of races. He has a horse named Then, who had a very successful Saratoga meet, a couple big races going long. And this horse, 13 Colonies, has had probably a better career than it looks on quick glance. I think you can toss the first 2 races at Gulfstream, just the style of this horse, and wasn't really intent. But the Keeneland race is good that we're going to take a look at. And I think last time out against Simulate, he ran very, very well. Simulate came back to run second, I think, in a race that did we just take a look at a race where Simulate ran second? I don't know, but he's a mott runner with some ability. I think this horse is well spotted. He was placed in the Saranac, which is one of those restricted graded stakes races on the closing day of Saratoga, where he was drawn outside with a lot of speed. He opts for this spot. I think it's a good decision. Son of Hit It a Bomb. I think sitting on a big race here should get a good trip, and he's coming in fresh.
I'm with you, partner, but I gotta tell you, I think I picked this horse every race of his career. So he was right for us at Keeneland once, and he looked really good that day.
Colonies looking for some running room. Brushfire is there. And then here comes Lebowski down toward the inside, trying to find some running room. 13 Colonies, though, sprinting away inside the 8th pole with a widening 3-length lead. Back to Lebowski. Late charge of Bourbon for Toby and Moon Channel, but no catching 13 Colonies. Irad Ortiz Jr.
13 Colonies, top pick for both Scott and I in the Old Dominion Derby. Old Dominion school mascot. You want to take that one?
Old Sunbelt team, right? No.
Yeah, ODU, right?
Yeah, no, I'm embarrassed that I don't know. When you say it, I'm going to be wrong.
Monarchs.
Monarchs, yeah. I'm just wondering if we're going to get like a Washington and Lee stakes soon, or what's the next stakes name?
I've partied at Washington and Lee. I had a friend who went to school there, and we drove down, and I'm probably wanted for something in Lexington, Virginia, where Washington and Lee is. I'm not wanted for anything at Old Dominion. Hopefully, though, we can get a winner in the Old Dominion Derby there coming up. Race number 10, Saturday at Colonial Downs. Want to remind you again, we've got the money back special on the 2 Florida Sire Stakes races at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. We've got a good promotion for Saturday at Kentucky Downs. When you bet with First Bet and Express Bet $250 on that Saturday card at Kentucky Downs, get $25 back. So 10% rebate on a $250 wagering day on the card. Certainly take advantage of that. Bet with First Bet and Express Bet. If you like international racing, Hong Kong returns to action. Johnny Burke's got his horse ratings for Hong Kong. all quantified and ready to go for some handicapping here on the Hong Kong season. That begins late Saturday night and the Sunday morning. The Korea Cup will get you going before that. We've got handicapping help for you on the Korea Cup as well. So check out all of our international racing action at First Bet and Express Bet. That coming up this weekend. There's a lot going on worldwide here, Scott. A fun weekend, a lot of grass racing. I mean, it won't. Darn near everything we took a look at this weekend's on the turf except the Florida Soccer Stakes series. So if you like the grass, this is a good week to get after it.
Always is with the Kentucky Downs. And then you have kind of the fact that the big dirt races were the last few weeks, kind of cards headlined by the biggest races of the summer, which happen to all be on dirt. So there's a lot of very bettable races and some good promos. So I expect it to be a busy, fun weekend of action as we got plenty of football, plenty of ponies. Degenerate City, right?
I would know nothing about that.
I mean, I do. I mean, I'm not afraid to admit it. You're better off than me. So
I do not play sports. That's one thing I do not bet. My heart is way too big for my wallet. I would gamble on the teams I love, and I would bet against the teams I hate because I wouldn't even want to. Like, for instance, if you were playing like Notre Dame or something like that, I wouldn't even want to cash a ticket and be right on Notre Dame. It would hurt me so bad to watch them win that I wouldn't even want to cash the ticket. So I stay away from sports betting.
I find it interesting. There's a lot of horse players I know that like sports a lot. You being one. If you're as big a sports fan as I am, you just don't think about betting on it. But and then there's not. I wish we had more people that we could go the other way with. But there are a lot of people that like betting racing a lot more. I mean, I fire much more at racing than I do at sports bets. Fantasy sports and racing is where I fire the most at.
Well, we hope you have a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed the show. I'll be back on Tuesday for the It's Official podcast where we review the weekend. Scott and Bailey Armour will be along next Thursday with their weekly podcast as well. So be sure to check out Horse Sense with them on this same YouTube channel with Express Bet on the YouTube channel. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you over the weekend next Tuesday.